We're with Coach Gundy as we get ready for homecoming here at Oklahoma State. The Cowboys face Arizona State. So how do you reverse the momentum? I mean, in terms of, obviously we know winning a game, but what steps do you take during the week to start the process of reversing the momentum?
Well, each week we talk about a process when the game's completed to get to the next game. And really in what we do, there's not any other way to handle the situation, in my opinion, in that whether you have a big win or whether you have a loss, and in the last 2 weeks we've had two of them separate. Like we had the BYU one where we played really good football, played with great effort, and lost a heartbreaker.
Yeah.
And then we lost a close game at Baylor, but we didn't play with good effort and we didn't play good football. So we've had both. But either way, my message to the players has always been that this is a very similar situation to what you'll face in life in a lot of ways. And the fact that you'll have things that don't go the way you want them to, could be with your family, could be with children, could be with a job. You know, you might lose a contract with a big company. And so what's done is done if we're intelligent enough to learn from our mistakes. So, for example, this week was much different based on us not playing with good effort. It's the first time that's happened. So it was an extremely difficult week for the players because I was on them. Started on Sunday and all the way up through Wednesday in a big way, because those are things that are non-negotiable and not acceptable in our culture and our organization.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the players. I was on the coaches because they're responsible for their players. And then I'm responsible for everything. So I've had, my buddies or people that are friends will say, Coach, it's not your fault. Yeah, it is my fault because I'm responsible for the entire organization. And if that happens, then I have to come up with a plan to fix it. So we put a plan in place this week. We worked it extremely hard. Everybody has to gut check and look in the mirror, because if you're not willing to admit where you had a mistake, it'd be very difficult to fix the mistake that you just made.
It's interesting. We were at Legacy Village for the radio show, where we do your radio show each week, and some of the residents before you arrived were asking the same, but yet he seems so even keel, like they're expecting some type of emotional outburst from you in public. You have to do some of that to get the attention of the team, but still there's an even keelness. I don't think that's a word, but there's an even keel nature that you have to maintain as well as a leader. So there's a juggling act. You got to get on them, but at the same time you have to show those leadership qualities to make sure that things do take on the right flow.
So these guys, our players, are big, strong, tough guys, but nobody likes to be humiliated in public. Nobody likes to be humiliated in front of their peers. And human nature is to turn and wall somebody off if that's the approach that you take.
Sure.
So I don't believe in that. If I thought that would be long-term beneficial or a short-term fix, certainly we would do it. That's my opinion. This generation of young people is even a little more different than what it used to be, from the fact that we were raised differently. We have accountability, structure, and discipline in this organization, but it's handled a little different than what it used to be. So the approach with those guys was to make sure that they understood, but then there's quite a bit of emotion that took place here on Monday and Tuesday from me.
Yeah.
But there's different, it's kind of like in the movie Hoosiers when the guy said, well, you can stand in my living room naked and bark at the moon. It's different than if you do it at your own house. Well, the things that took place here on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday were inside of our own confines, okay? Yes. And that's okay.
Yes.
Because the players all know what's going on.
Yeah, stays in the family. Here's the thing. You think back about it, you had a fumble at the 2-yard line last week, you had a missed field goal at K-State, and then a fumble inside the K-State 30. You had the lead at BYU with a minute to play. You missed a field goal early in the second half that would have put you up by 10 points and changed the dynamics. The reality is, if you get rid of some of those momentum plays that went against you on the road especially, don't you think you could be in a much different position, right?
You can. What happens is those mistakes are magnified and they show up more when you're not as successful over the duration of the game. So the approximate 180 plays that take place in a football game, for 19 years here with me as the coach, most of those plays worked in our favor. So the mistakes aren't as glaring. When the majority of those, or half of those or less plays, don't work in your favor, the mistakes become more glaring. And that's what's happened over the last month.
Yeah. With Arizona State, is it safe to say maybe even more than any team you've played, they want to run the football?
Sure they do. And the running back, number 4, Scatterboo,
yeah.
is a guy you have to reckon with. He's a very thick, low to the ground, strong runner that their team, in my opinion, feeds off his energy. They like to see him run, break tackles. He'll show the strong pose. They feed off of him. And he's done enough in his career to earn that right. He's done it for a long time. So, for lack of a better term, he's backed up everything that he's doing.
Yeah.
And we need to understand where he's at on the field, and we have to tackle him down around the knees and get him down. You can't hit him up high. You'll bounce off of him. He has a really strong low center of gravity.
As we record this, the weather forecast for the game looks poor, as in rain, possible heavy rain. Mm-hmm. How does that impact preparation? Does that impact how you think going into the game? What happens with that? Because seldom do we go into a game with the type of rain chance we have for Saturday night.
Yeah, so we talked about the rain on Sunday and Monday, and that, in my opinion, you certainly have to have a plan for it. So you don't want to get into it like what happened to us last year down in Orlando against Central Florida, that there wasn't any rain chances really.
Yeah.
And we got in a monsoon. Well, we know now that we could be in a heavy downpour, so we talk about it, what's the plan, and depending on how heavy it's coming down, it could be more difficult to throw passes, so could be heavy run. If it's heavy run, we need to be able to rush the ball. Heavy run, we need to be able to stop the run.
Yeah. Cowboys and Arizona State this weekend. We'll have highlights of that on our next show. We'll see you then.